Hi, welcome back to LM Teaches English, and in this series of videos I am going through the play version of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time, and which was adapted by Simon Stephens from the novel written by Mark Haddon. And this is lesson 3, so we're beginning from page 11. Last lesson we were looking at how Christopher interacts with the law enforcement and how people treat him differently when he was arrested by the policeman who was quite aggressive with him compared with the duty sergeant. We also met the character Ed, who is Christopher's father, and we learned that Christopher's mother is dead. And we learned that Christopher's father Ed is kind of good at just humouring Christopher, letting him talk and get on with it. And perhaps he's used to that. But the main thing I asked you to look at was autistic spectrum disorder and how Christopher demonstrates some of these characteristics. So hopefully you've done that now and you're ready for today's lesson, when we see more from Christopher and Ed's relationship. And well, we'll just read it, shall we? Christopher turns to Ed. "I'm sorry. It's okay. I didn't kill Wellington." "I know. Christopher, you have to stay out of trouble, okay?" "I didn't know I was going to get into trouble. I like Wellington and I went to say hello to him, but I didn't know that someone had killed him." "Just try and keep your nose out of other people's business." "I'm going to find out who killed Wellington." "Were you listening to what I was saying, Christopher?" "Yes, I was listening to what you were saying, but when someone gets murdered, you have to find out who did it so that they can be punished." "It's a bloody dog, Christopher! A bloody dog!" "I think dogs are important too. I think some dogs are cleverer than some people. Steve, for example, who comes to school on Thursdays, needs help eating his food, and he probably couldn't even fetch a stick." "Leave it." "I wonder if the police will find out who killed him and punished the person." "I said leave it, for God's sake." "Are you sad about Wellington?" "Yes, Christopher, you could say that. You could very well say that." Siobhan reads more from the book. "Mother died 2 years ago. I came home from school one day and no one answered the door, so I went and found the secret key that we keep under a flower pot outside the kitchen window. I let myself into the house and wiped my feet on the mat. I put the key in the bowl on the table. I took my coat off and hung it by the side of the fridge so that it would be ready for school the next day, and gave 3 pellets of rat food to Toby, who is my pet rat. I made myself a raspberry milkshake and heated it up in the microwave. Then I went to my bedroom and turned on my bedroom light and played 6 games of Tetris and got to level 38, which is my 4th best score ever. An hour later, Father came home from work." "Christopher, have you seen your mum?" "No." "He went downstairs and started making some phone calls. I did not hear what he said. Then he came up to my room and said he had to go out for a while and he wasn't sure how long he'd be. He said that if I needed him anything, I should call him on his mobile phone. He was away for 2.5 hours. When he came back, I went downstairs." "I'm afraid you won't be seeing your mother for a while." "Why not?" "Your mother's had to go into hospital." "Can we visit her?" "No." "Why can't we?" "She needs a rest. She needs to be on her own." "Is it a psychiatric hospital?" "No, it's an ordinary hospital. She has a problem with her heart." "We will need to take food to her. I'll take some to her during the day when you're at school, and I'll give it to the doctors and they can give it to your mum, okay?" "But you can't cook." "Christopher, look, I'll buy some ready-made stuff from Marks and Spencer and take those in. She likes those. I'll make her a get well card. If I make her a get well card, will you take it in for her tomorrow?" "How are you today, Christopher?" "I'm very well, thank you." "That's good. In the bus, on the way to school, we passed 4 red cars in a row." "4? So today is a good day." "Great, I am glad. I've decided I'm going to try and find out who killed Wellington, because a good day is a day for projects and planning things." "Who's Wellington?" "Wellington is a dog that used to belong to our neighbour Mrs. Shears, who is our friend, but he is dead now because somebody killed him by putting a garden fork through him, and I found him, and then a policeman thought I'd killed him, but I hadn't, and then the policeman tried to touch me, so I hit him, and then I had to go to the police station." "Gosh! And I'm going to find out who really killed Wellington and make it a project, even though Father told me not to." "Did he?" "Yes." "I see. I don't always do what I'm told. Why? Because when people tell you what to do, it is usually confusing and does not make sense. For example, people often say be quiet, but they do not tell you how long to be quiet for. No. Why did your father tell you not to try to find out who killed Wellington, Christopher? I don't know. Christopher, if your father's told you not to do something, maybe you shouldn't do it. Well, we're meant to be writing stories today, so why don't you write about what happened to Wellington? Okay, I will. I can help you. Will you help me with the spelling and the grammar and the footnotes? Okay, we're going to read a little bit more, but I just wanted to pause there because we've got some really nice stuff going on with Christopher and Siobhan's relationship, and that's one of the things I want you to look at today. It's a very short activity, but it's mostly quote collecting. So I want you to have a look at how Siobhan and Christopher's, or what their relationship is like, and how she maybe goes above and beyond her role sometimes in looking after Christopher. I mean, here she's sort of reminding him. She never tells him directly what to do, which is lovely, but she does say, why did your father tell you not to try to find out who killed Wellington, Christopher? So she's trying to get him to come to the conclusion on his own that it's probably the wrong thing to do, which is lovely because I think it shows that Siobhan doesn't think, Christopher's stupid. Not that he is at all, he's very intelligent, but she's not underestimating him. She knows that he's intelligent, he just needs help understanding other people and the way that neurotypical people go about saying things and things like that. Something else that I really wanted to pick up on in this video, because I don't think I've talked about it much since the first lesson, was the way that the scenes flow into one another and how there's not really any kind of, like if you were reading a Shakespeare play, you've got Act 3, Scene 2, Act 3, Scene 4, so you know when you're moving on to a new area. Or in other plays, actually Shakespeare's not the best example because even he's a bit sparse with his stage directions. Other plays you would have exactly where this scene is set and maybe a little bit of a description about that particular scene. But here we don't have any of that. We just literally have gone at one point from talking about Mother being dead and bringing her a get well card to then straight away the only indication there's any change in scene is this gap here, and then straight away we're with Siobhan at school, and then before that we had Christopher at the police station, and then we have Christopher talking about how he finds people confusing because they use metaphors. So that's something you've really got to get used to with this play, the way that it jumps around. So that's something I would like you to look at as well. That's going to be an ongoing thing, but make a few notes on that. Like, answer these questions, for example. So why does Stevens lay it out like this? It's Christopher's book, which, by the way, he's just broken the fourth wall again because he's told Siobhan has said, we're meant to be writing stories today, so why don't you write about what happened to Wellington? So within Christopher's book that Siobhan is reading a conversation she had with Christopher about writing this particular book. So it's very, it's very, it's breaking the fourth wall. It's an interesting dramatic technique. And identifying the technique is about 20% of the work. 80% of the work, especially in the exam, would be you describing or exploring or analysing why the playwright has done that. So come up with some theories and then we can talk about it again as we go through the videos. I won't give anything away as to why I think he's done that just yet, because I want you to try and come up with it yourself. But I will come back to it obviously as we go on. So why has Stevens laid the play out like this? What does it symbolise? What does it indicate about Christopher or the characters, anything like that? So two things then. Firstly, Siobhan and Christopher's relationship. Secondly, is there no clear-cut scene change as we go through the play? All right, we're going to read a little bit more because we've got some more time. Christopher, I'm sorry, your mother's died. She's had a heart attack. It wasn't expected. What kind of a heart attack? I don't know what kind of a heart attack. Now isn't the moment, Christopher, to be asking questions like that. It was probably an aneurysm. I'm sorry, Christopher. I'm really sorry. Mrs. Shear's house is assembled. Interesting. We've got a bit of information there about the scenes. That evening, I went round to Mrs. Shear's house and knocked on the door and waited for her to answer it. Mrs. Shears answers her door. She's drinking a cup of tea. Whoa. What are you doing here? I wanted to come and tell you that I didn't kill Wellington, and also I want to find out who killed him. Christopher, I really don't want to see you right now. Do you know who killed Wellington? Can you go now, Christopher? I wanted to see if the fork was in the shed. If you don't go now, I will call the police again. Reverend Peters, where is heaven? I'm sorry, Christopher. In our universe, whereabouts is it exactly? It's not in our universe. It's another kind of place altogether. There isn't anything outside our universe, Reverend Peters. There isn't another kind of place altogether. Except there might be if you go through a black hole. But a black hole is what is called a singularity, which means it's impossible to find out what is on the other side, because the gravity of a black hole is so big that even electromagnetic waves like light can't get out of it, and electromagnetic waves are how we get information about things which are far away. And if heaven is on the other side of a black hole, then dead people would have to be fired into space on a rocket to get there, and they aren't, or people would notice. Reverend Peters looks at him for a while before he responds. Well, when I say heaven is outside our universe, it's really just a manner of speaking. I suppose what it really means is that they are with God. But where is God? Christopher, we should talk about this on another day when I have more time. The next day was Saturday, and there is not much to do on a Saturday unless Father takes me out somewhere on an outing to the boating lake or to the garden centre. But on this Saturday, England were playing Romania at football, which meant that we weren't going to go on an outing because Father wanted to watch the match on the television. So I made a decision. I decided to do some more detection. I decided to go out on my own. Okay, so this section here is too long for the time we have left, so I'm actually going to pause it there and we'll come back to page 16 in the next lesson. So I think what we've just read there has given us more of an insight into Christopher's mind and how he takes things literally. Really nice to see that conversation between him and Reverend Peters, and Christopher asking exactly where heaven is and where God is and needing those exact answers. Often when people hear about religion, they don't question those sorts of things. They accept that it's a different sort of place. It's not in this universe, it can't be explained by science. But Christopher really, we could see him before he's clung to science as a way of understanding the world around him. So for that not to help him in this situation is a real barrier for him. So that's a nice thing to link to, perhaps if you've got space on your notes about Christopher's autism and autistic traits, that might be a nice thing to add on to that. I suppose a really big thing that we've read here is Christopher's mother dying and Christopher's reaction to that. What kind of heart attack is what Christopher says when he finds out that his mother has died. Perhaps it might help you to think about what you would expect somebody to say if they found out that piece of information. They probably wouldn't go on to say it was probably an aneurysm. Interestingly though, we are forced in this moment to pay close attention to what Christopher says because it's so shocking and almost to the point of it being funny. It's dark humour in a way. But we forget sometimes to look at Ed and how Ed is reacting. So alongside those previous other tasks I've mentioned, I would like you to look at Ed as a character, as a singular character, not as a father just yet. Just look at how he is as a character. For example, the way he tells Christopher that his mother's died, the fact that he sometimes talks using metaphors, the fact that he seems a little bit impatient sometimes. What does that tell us about Ed's character? And do we like him as a character as well? So those are some things to bear in mind. So a few things to work on there. So the first one was to look at Siobhan. The second one was to look at how the scenes change and why you think Stevens might have done that. And the third one is to look at Ed as a character. So if you can make notes on those three things, as many quotes as you can, as well as you can find, would be really useful for you to start learning those as soon as possible, because you will need them in your exam. Leave any questions or any comments below and we can get a discussion going, or if you have any worries I can help you by answering them as well. Alright, I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.